So when we put up a story about the GAA congratulating Kyle Hayes on his nomination as Hurler of the Year, like our Facebook page lit up absolutely massively. You have these hundreds of comments, and it's a really simple, sort of argument goes on. He shouldn't be there. He's a disgrace. Or then there's also probably even equally people saying, something to do with sport. He's a great sportsman. But why is Kyle Hayes so controversial, I suppose? I mean, he has been in the centre of two really high profile cases. And just 2 weeks ago, I think he was barred from driving. Tell us about that most recent case anyway.
Yeah, so earlier on in September, Kyle Hayes was convicted of dangerous driving. It was on the N20 Cork to Limerick road, so near Mallow. He basically was caught driving at 150 kilometres in a 100 kilometre zone, and he overtook 9 cars in the one go. So he was convicted of this. Now, he did have a clean driving licence before and hadn't had any other driving incidents on his record, and there was a plea. He did try and plead guilty to careless driving, but the judge didn't accept that. He said that this was extremely dangerous. He said he was actually saving people like Kyle Hayes' life by doing this, that, there had been fatalities on that stretch of road before, and that was completely, how he was driving was completely dangerous. Kyle Hayes tried to say that he made a mistake, that basically he ran out of road because it was, the way when you're overtake, the lane that allows you to overtake cars, but it eventually it merges into one lane. And he said that he mistook this, and that's why he sped up, because he's basically trying to get there. The judge didn't accept this. So I suppose the announcement of the GPA or the GAA All-Star nominations for football and hurling was made just a couple of weeks. So I suppose it's bad timing.
Well, it's bad timing. And of course, that's not Kyle Hayes' only incident, which we'll go into.
No.
I mean, obviously the GAA don't even pick the nominees. That's picked by media people, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. There's a panel of GAA journalists across print, online, radio, TV, and they selected, there's dozens of nominations made, and then obviously there's a team of the year. Kyle Hayes is most likely going to get a place on the team of the year, so he'll get an all-star. He has 4 already, but he was also nominated by these journalists for player of the year. He's one of 3. Now that award will be actually chosen by the players, with the GPA, but he's obviously being picked as top 3 in the country this year.
Yeah, so look, you get the GAA put up their tweet and saying we're thrilled to announce these 3 people, one of whom is Kyle Hayes, and instantly people react to it. Now, it's obviously they react in part because of the driving, but also because Kyle Hayes is at the centre of a really hugely reported on case where, he was involved he was convicted ultimately of violent disorder outside a pub in Limerick, and a man suffered serious injuries.
Yeah, so a man suffered facial injuries, a fractured eye socket. Kyle Hayes was found guilty after a 2-week trial by a jury of 2 counts of violent disorder. The incident was actually 5 years ago, so he would have been, I think, 21 at the time, in 2019. He was said by the judge to be the main instigator. So what happened was he basically seen this guy chatting to these 2 women. Now the victim said that he knew them from school. Kyle Hayes seemed to take offence to this because one of the women was dating a friend of his, and he approached them, and he was claimed in the trial to have said things like, "Do you not know who the fuck I am?"
Which is what they always are, whether they say it or not. That's what all celebrities are always accused of saying in these cases.
Exactly, and it kind of, I suppose, that sort of rhetoric will rile people up, because they then think, yeah, he's a very talented guy, but nobody has the right to go around and act this way because of who they are. So, and then an incident happened on the dance floor where the victim was approached again, and then it was claimed that he had been assaulted by a number of men. Now, Kyle Hayes pleaded not guilty to assault. The incident then spilled outside the nightclub, and the victim was assaulted again. So he was found by the jury guilty of 2 violent disorder incidents, one inside the nightclub, one outside, but was found not guilty of assault, and he still maintains that he did not attack anybody.
Yeah, and so he was given a suspended sentence, and of course the big risk, he was given an 18-month suspended sentences running concurrently. And the big risk for Kyle Hayes now is that will those suspended sentences be activated?
Exactly.
Because he was convicted not of speeding but of dangerous driving, which amounts to a criminal offence.
A judge can impose an actual jail sentence as well. So it's a serious offence.
Yeah, and he'll go back and get his chance. So I'm just going to bring up one of the things the judge has said, and I'm going to mention a previous podcast you were on where you were, let me say, less than sympathetic to a young man known as Conor McGregor for probably a lesser driving offence, really.
Well, I think it was dangerous driving.
Was it? Okay.
I think so. And Conor has other driving offences.
Okay.
And
well,
he also has over 20 convictions. But sorry, I'll let you have your say.
So let's go back. Well, I'm going to say one of the things the judge said, which is really kind of curious, actually. He doesn't bring it up, but exactly what he says. But the judge basically says it's funny that there's loads of the media here for Kyle Hayes driving offences where he's covered cases all week that are more serious and there was no media presence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's right in a sense. I mean, people were there not to cover dangerous driving. They were there because there was a high-profile figure in Irish public life was up in court. So he is correct in that.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's almost inevitable because of who he is.
Because of who he is.
Now, if you look at the if you look at other things that happen other people say Kyle Hayes, the GA connection, you're always going to get it easier than maybe other people. So do we have sympathy for Kyle Hayes? I mean, this is, a dangerous piece of driving. How should we treat, I suppose, what the judge says is, how should we treat people like Kyle Hayes who have come before the courts? Should they not be nominated for their sports awards? Yeah. I mean, do the sports achievements stand totally separate from what they do in their public or their other parts of the public life?
Yeah, and I suppose you can make the argument that, the GAA is a voluntary organisation, it's a sports organisation. Kyle has a job outside that. I don't know whether, when people are convicted of crimes, there's obviously follow up there in relation to their jobs, but you can make the argument that I suppose Conor McGregor is a professional athlete. He's been paid for this, for what he does. And, I suppose what I brought up as an issue personally in the podcast was how he conducts himself in public. I suppose nobody is condoning what Kyle Hayes did. And I think it's a difficult one. I just think it was bad timing for the GAA to announce this because I suppose with the violent disorder, it was a 2-week trial. There was a victim who suffered horrendous injuries, who said he's left terrified, he's been trolled, all of these things. And I suppose he was given a suspended sentence, which is, people think, we often say ourselves walks free. But, if somebody gets into any trouble within that period of the suspended sentence, so for Kyle Hayes it was 2 years, you can actually end up back in prison. So it is still a serious sentence, even though it was a suspended sentence. So some would say, that was 5 years ago. The Limerick Hurler manager John Kiley gave a character reference for him and said saying that he's not condoning what he did, but he's made mistakes. He's a role model in his eyes in terms of the sporting, and let him get on with it. But I think the thing that's difficult to defend is the driving.
Well, I mean, you can't have it both ways.
No.
I mean, he's either an amateur sportsman who's doing it for throwing a hurl around the field and nobody, he's just an ordinary amateur guy, or else he's a role model for sports people. They can't have it both ways.
No, we can't have it both ways.
And I mean, let's be realistic. The GAA aren't a normal amateur sports organisation, are they, in this country?
Well, no, they're not, I suppose, in that sense. But in terms of these people still have to work other jobs, and Kyle Hayes has a job, and no, but I'm just saying they're not paid for they're not paid full time for what they do, and he does. I'm sure he gets expenses, food, all that kind of thing, and I'm sure some of the big stars have their own sponsorship deals. But of course, it's not the same. It's a massive organisation. It's made celebrities of a lot of people. So I do agree with you in that sense. And I do think that, but how do you, when you yourself can be sympathetic to criminals, and if they get out of jail, do you not think that they need to get on with their lives? So it is an interesting argument.
Well, I mean, is it if Conor McGregor is, I think we saw him there on the weekend with the Anthony Joshua fight.
Yeah.
Wearing Rolexes and bragging about his money or whatever it is. So, I mean, do we have more sympathy for Kyle Hayes because he's a GAA guy than you would for Conor McGregor? I mean, Conor McGregor is a sports person. He doesn't sign any contract to say I'm a role model any more than Kyle Hayes does.
No, and I suppose it's not that I have more sympathy for Kyle Hayes than Conor McGregor, but I suppose Conor McGregor has had so many chances and he continues to, how many convictions does he have now? Is it more than 20? And I suppose, he's on an international scale, he's representing Ireland, and just some of the things he does and the way he behaves is just, I find it hard to sort of say, oh, I find that okay. The incident in the nightclub, what happened to the victim is horrendous. Kyle Hayes is a suspended sentence. He could possibly, find that sentence reactivated now because of the dangerous driving conviction. So, it doesn't, in no way, nobody's saying that he doesn't deserve any kind of punishment, and it's not okay for somebody, if it is, now this is what was claimed, if someone is going around saying, do you know who I am, like that is not,
no, because
that is not acceptable, of course.
Like GA stars, particularly in parts of rural Ireland, are they have a higher profile than than almost anybody else, and people have different views on that, but yeah, no, I agree. And I know you think that I'm more sympathetic because of the GA and I'm a GA fan, but I've been in pubs where like certain GA stars are given like A-list treatment. They have security around them. They're getting served drinks at the table. So I've seen all that. And I do agree with you that there is a sort of hierarchy and that certain GA stars are lauded as gods. And that's okay. But I suppose you have to, in the sense of like the rehabilitation side of it, like he was given a suspended sentence. He was waiting 4 years for that case to go to trial. In fairness to John Kiley, he wasn't the only character reference. There's lots of character references. He did get he avoided jail, but he was given a sentence. He was given a €10,000 fine to pay to the victim as well. It isn't. And then he was back playing. And is that okay? But I suppose, are the GA, should they be expected to have a... If you can ask me, right?
Yeah.
I think like that the GA stars who end up in hot water get a much easier time off the media than other people in other sports. I just think that's the way it is in Ireland. Like, that's my own. But the other thing is, like, if he's a good hurler and he's played well, I also think he should be allowed to be nominated for that. I personally think it's kind of nothing to do with his sports.
And he's not nominating himself, and John Kiley isn't nominating him.
In fact, he's being nominated by the media.
Exactly.
Which tells its own kind of story, really.
Well, that is true. And I suppose, like, some could say, after the violent disorder case, you could say, he, not that youth is in any way a defence, but he that was 5 years ago. Let him get on with it and put his head down. He's back playing. He's obviously, it's not hard to make. It's not easy to make a county team. He's he's doing all that. According to John Kiley, his manager, he does charity work, all of that kind of thing. Let him get on with it. But I do have an issue with when somebody then goes and commits something like dangerous driving and tries to claim, as he did in court, that I just ran out of road, it was a mistake. There's road signs for that. We've all been on those roads where you can see that they're going to merge, and it's not okay. And that is a serious thing, because how many stories have we reported on this year about road fatalities? It is a major issue on Irish roads at the moment. That road in particular was flagged in court as having fatalities on it. So, so his behaviour in that sense, it does need to be checked.
No, I think that you also get the comments on Facebook, and not that it really matters what anybody says on Facebook, as everybody knows, but you get the sense of it shouldn't even be reported on from some people. I think our job is, journalists should report on it.
Of course.
But also people should be allowed move on. And is there a purpose to, jailing people for first offences or whatever? I'm not sure it is, but I do. And if you look at the newspapers, not just in Ireland, but across the world, sports people getting in trouble, like really is. It just happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And in America, and there's reasons for that. Like some of the reasons are that people involved in high profile sports become famous at a young age, and sometimes what goes with that fame can lead them down tricky roads for sure.
Yeah. But do you think that, like, generally we're talking about sports stars on this podcast, it might be like UFC or boxing.
Yeah.
So do you think that, like, it's because GAA tries to have this cleaner image?
No, I think
people
it's that there is an establishment in Ireland, and the GAA, like the idea that the GAA is an amateur organisation. I mean, it's an amateur organisation in that the players don't get paid specifically, but it's a huge, massive business turnover.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. And when I'm saying it's voluntary, I mean that, it's not, it's not his full-time work. So it's like, I played club camogie and GA for years. If I got in trouble, like, it's a pastime, but obviously it's way more than that when you get to county level. It is basically like, I think they play, as his manager said, they're training over 30 hours a week. So that's what I meant by the sense of it's voluntary. But I do agree with you that it's like, these people are dedicating so much of their week to it, like way more than you probably would even imagine. And like, obviously it's a multi-million euro industry as well.
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at the assault in that, but actually he wasn't convicted of assault. If you look at the violent disorder that occurred in that pub in Limerick, I mean, those cases would make the newspapers anyway, probably. Yeah. Now, no doubt it was covered far more extensively than if he hadn't been famous, but they're in the papers every day of the week.
Yeah.
Look, I think, Kyle Hayes would pay a heavy price if a suspended sentence is activated for speeding.
Yeah.
But speeding does obviously kill. And I think the judge, if you're to some of the comments he made, he said that I'm actually trying to keep him alive, speaking about Kyle Hayes. And he also sort of referenced the fact of Kyle Hayes' celebrity, I suppose, saying he might think he is the chosen one and that it wasn't going to go wrong for him, but things do go wrong. Yeah. And he's talking about speed, and it's no news to people.
No.
The amount of people killed on speeding on rural roads in particular.
Of course. And also Kyle is 26, so he fits that image of, the young boy racer. Like there's a lot of talk about a lot of these road fatalities and, the age profile, young males. He was driving an Audi A6. So it does fit with that kind of like, negative image of, he thinks he's a superstar, he's going around in his fast car, thinks he's above the law. So I can like that. And obviously we had a lot of negative comments about it on social media that triggered our story. So of course, like that is the kind of image that you get. And, obviously he fits that bill because of his age. And, like, is there an issue with younger men down the country just thinking that they can drive as fast as they want? And, it's dangerous driving, but like, it could easily be something else if he had been lucky on that day. So
exactly. And what happens now? Does it comes back to court, does it?
Yeah, it's been sent back to the Limerick Circuit Criminal Court for, I think it's called a Section 99 activation of a violent disorder conviction. So obviously the judge in that case will then look at all the facts and see whether his suspended sentence should be activated. So he had a suspended sentence for 2 years. So, that's on a basis that you're a good behaviour for 2 years. So it depends on then the judge, how they find it. And he has indicated that he's going to appeal as well.
Appeal the dangerous driving conviction.
Appeal the dangerous driving conviction. He had offered to plead guilty to careless driving, which is obviously a much lower end of that offence. And the judge didn't accept that. So he tried to say it was a mistake, but, we all have to take responsibility. We're on the roads and, So it is a very interesting one. And I suppose, like, in terms of, it also makes me laugh when, when the judge said that about the media, and then, but like, was it one of our best stories last week, that story? Like it did so well, I mean, there's a massive interest in it as well, as much as people can say we focus on these players and all this kind of thing,
well, look, no doubt his suspended sentence hearing, which, the activation hearing, which aren't routinely covered, will be recovered in this case.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to it then at that point as well.
We will, yeah.
So thanks, Eimear.
Thanks, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.